Pika-pee, Pikachu?
What's up guys, Gunnermaniac here. I just wanted to make this video to tell you guys about some of the new developments in Pokemon Sapphire Speedrunning. As many of you probably already know and have been asking for details about, there is a new route that I've been working on with Pokeguy, Wave Warrior, Listless Salmon, etc. And this route is crazy because it's not only faster, but it is significantly safer, which is a huge deal for Pokemon Sapphire speedrunning. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Now, what most of you probably already know about this route, if you've been watching the stream at all, is that the main difference, or at least where the differences begin, is we're going to RNG manipulate and catch an Abra in Granite Cave right before Brawly to use Teleport. Now, what's interesting about this is that there was already an existing Abra route for this game that was considered much safer, but also much slower, which was a pretty good way for new runners to get into the game. But Wave Warrior got looking at this route and wondering some things about it because he was interested himself in running the game and didn't want the RNG shit show that Sapphire can be. And what Wave Warrior figured out is that if you don't delay Brawly into the late game, which was what you would do with this old safe Abra route, then you could take a different set of paths to get back to Norman through the mid game, saving 36 seconds over the old pathing in the old route. So we extrapolated upon that idea and built upon it and then compared the routes. And what we found is that this new route is actually pretty close to the old route, a bit faster, maybe 5 to 8 seconds faster, but it's so much safer, just like that old Abra route was. I took a lot of ideas from that route, but this route is pretty much entirely new. So in this video, I'll be trying to go over some of those main key differences between the old route and the new route so that you guys can get a better idea of what you're seeing. So I hope you enjoy. All right, so first off, we got to go over the main points of the old route. So here in the old route, we would beat Watson and we would head right up to the Fallerbor section, run into bikes and through the tunnel and all that. But on our way is this trainer, CTB, Cool Trainer Brooke. This is not a fight in Emerald, but in Sapphire, this is forced. You can't get around her. And what sucks about this fight is that in the old route, you were just deadlocked into this shitty set of circumstances where X-Attack Tackle doesn't kill Wingull, but you also need to be low HP here so that the Wingull can't growl or supersonic you. So since you're low HP, you have to go for this mud shot on Rosalia, but that's only 77% to kill and it's 5% to miss. So this fight was literally 27% to kill you on the old route. And if you went in at high enough HP to tank Rosalia's move, then you could just get growl from the Wingull and then it's over, right? So this is like my least favorite fight in the run on the old route. I hated it so much. It was evil, right? It was just evil. So then we'd head to the shop like normal, buy lots of things, though not as many things as the new route, and go through the mountain section, go through Meteor Falls, but then we would have to travel back to Mauville, right? And on the way, we're going to go through Rust Turf Tunnel and pick up Strength, and then head up to the Archie fight. Now, after Archie, it's right to Flannery, and as I'm sure most of you remember, the Flannery fight was all about setting up this poison death warp that Exarian came up with because it's really slow to get from Flannery back to Norman right after you beat Flannery. So this fight sucked because actually getting poisoned and then getting to a safe health on this fight was relatively unlikely. This fight took me, I think when I relearned the Sapphire route, 9 times to get a passable fight. It's just inconsistent. So this fight sucks, and I'm so happy that it's gone now. After Flannery, we find ourselves at Norman's gym. We go through Norman's gym like normal. We exit, get the candy, take the shop, and then we have to bike back to Mauville again so that we can head towards the Weather Institute and do the Rival 3 fight, head to Fortree from there. Now that we're in Fortree on the old route, we're actually forced to do Winona right away as level 34 Marsh Stomp because the gym leader that allows you to use Fly is Winona, and it takes way too long to get back to Fortree without beating her. So you're deadlocked into doing that, and that fight really, really sucks on the old route. So what we're going to do is save right when we get inside Granite Cave and then soft reset. So the way that it works is the same as Gunnermaniac, where you need to load up the game within a frame window, in this case 4 frames, and then pay attention to what the hiker NPC does to tell you exactly what frame you hit. Then based on that information, you do a different movement, and then as long as you take the same number of frames to take the same actions, you'll always get the same outcome. So we get an Abra on one of 2 tiles depending on which path we hit. Then we have to time the input going into the bag and then actually throwing the ball itself, because RNG moves twice as fast in battle as it does when you're inside the bag. So in order to hit a consistent frame window, you need to time both of those inputs. So assuming that you do that correctly, you'll always get an Abra that gets in the ball, and the ball frame window is pretty big. It's like 11 or 21 with the current minute, depending on which one you hit. So it's actually not too hard to do. So that's nice. After Abra, everything is pretty much the same until you beat Watson. And then after Watson, we're actually going to head towards Rust Turf Tunnel instead of up towards Fallarbor and Meteor Falls. Go ahead and pick up this, first of all, this Max Ether and the Strength HM right away. Now, the reason we need that Max Ether is because the Death Warp that was set up after Flannery was like perfect to heal your HP and PP. So you actually have PP problems without that Death Warp, and you actually still have a few on the new route, but if you're careful, it's fine. And then we're going to head down out of the left exit and pick up this HP up. This is the fastest item that you can get that gives like a lot of money, and you need a lot of money. Even more than this, actually. So after that, since we've walked in the Mauville Center, we can teleport right back and head up to Fallarbor like we would on the old route. Now, what's the absolute best part about this route is once we find ourselves at Cool Trainer Brook, we've already picked up Strength. So I've spent extra money early game on an X attack, and this fight is now essentially unlosable. You can get crit by the Wingle if you have very specific HP, but pretty much the fight is X attack, Strength 3, and that's it. And it's so beautiful. I'm in love with this fight. I hated Cool Trainer Brook on my world record grind. The fight that I actually beat CTB on, that was the one fight out of 7 for CTB that I actually won. So it was just horrible. After CTB, we're going to head to the shop like normal, except this time we're actually going to be buying more stuff than before. I'll talk about the reason for that later, but that's pretty much why we picked up that HP up, and why when we're heading up the mountain to Meteor Falls, we're going to be picking up this Carbos. This is like a super fast item to get, gives a ton of money just like the HP up, so definitely worth it. We're gonna go through our Meteor Falls cutscene, and now you're probably wondering, well, didn't you lose a ton of time by going to pick up Strength early before, right? Like you had to go all the way over there, teleport back, like that's great and all, you made CTB safe, but how is that faster? Well, you've got to remember what's coming after this Meteor Falls cutscene, right? What do we do in the old route? We bike from here all the way back to Mauville through Rust Turf Tunnel, but on this route, you just walk out the way you came and teleport back to Mauville and head back up to the Archie fight. So this split actually goes pretty much even in movement and fight times and stuff, except for the fact that you have to get that max ether and HP up. That is time loss for this split, at least compared to the old one. But you get the fast CTB fight, and all of the time for those items being picked up is made up from route changes later. All right, so here's another big chunk of time save and a huge difference in the route. And one of the reasons that we can actually afford everything all wrapped into one is this Flannery fight. Now, the old Flannery fight was X attack times 4, pray that you get poisoned at some point, maybe stall another turn to set up a better death warp, and kill everything in one turn. Now, this new fight, we're just going to finish off the Slugma because we actually don't want to get poisoned, and then set up 1 X attack on the second Slugma, who has Light Screen, Flamethrower, Sunny Day. Generally not an issue. Sunny Day is a little scary if you're low health because the Torkoal hurts, and Burn is obviously terrible. And instead of a 1-shot, it's a 2-shot on the Torkoal because you only set up 1 X attack. But it's so much faster to do it this way, at least on average. Now, the problem is that Torkoal can actually mess you up a little bit. He's got Body Slam Paralyze, he's got huge damage on Sunny Day Overheat, and he's got Attract. So you can actually die to this fight still, but it's like, you know, safer because it's way more consistent and it's so much faster than the old route. Okay, so because we have spent so much money at the last shop, and because we're forced to actually walk out of the gym here and get the Go-Go Goggles cutscene, we can take the money that Flannery gives us, which is like 2,800, it's a ton of money, and spend all of that at the herb shop after Flannery instead of being forced to take it before Flannery because we're dying inside the gym to not get this cutscene. So what's cool about that is because we picked up the Carbos, we're going to sell that, and this route now has infinite healing items. You could never use everything that you buy, pretty much. And the old route actually had quite a few problems with healing items a lot of the time, despite the fact that what's interesting is this is the last shop we're going to take in this route now. The old route has two separate shops after this one. And this is going to be the last one we take now, which is the reason that we invested so much time in picking up those items for money, because we're buying so many things so early. So after the shop, we're headed out and we have to pick up this candy because we're not going to be picking up a candy that the old route picked up because we're not even going to go to that route again. So we're going to swap March Stomp back to the front, teleport back to Mauville. And then this is where Wave Warrior's big brain came in, because the old route here would have delayed Brawly, biked down the beach to Mauville, taken the boat to Dewford, done Brawly, and then taken the boat back to Norman's gym. But Wave Warrior said, well, if we're not doing Brawly late, then what if we just bike back through Rust Turf Tunnel? You know, maybe that would be faster. He was pretty sure it would be faster. What he wasn't pretty sure about is that it would be 36 seconds faster to do that. And that's when I got interested in this route and started really working on it. As you can see here, you got to do some kind of weird looking movement to get back, but this is so much faster than the alternative. And what makes this route possible really is this idea. So the fights in Norman's gym are the same from here. All right, so after Norman on the old route, you remember we had to leave the gym, get the candy, and then we were headed to the shop and biking all the way back to Mauville. While on this route, we pick up the candy and just teleport right back to Mauville. And this is where a huge chunk of that time save comes from. And this is pretty much a trade-off, you know, with getting back to Norman's gym, because of course the poison death warp is quite fast. And then we're headed right to Weather Institute and Fortree and whatnot. But this time, we're going to delay menuing before Rival 3, saving our candies, and go right into the fight, which doesn't really change the fight. You have to use an extra mudshot. It doesn't matter. And then once we're done with the fight, step inside Fortree Center, go to the Steven cutscene like we would have on the old route, except this time we're headed right to Mount Pyre to do those fights right away, and those fights are not noticeably worse. There's like a 1 damage range, I think, on that section to get all that experience, and there's a rare candy right at the top of Mount Pyre. So then we barely get level 33, use all 3 of our remaining candies to get Swampert instead of level 34 Marsh Stomp, and then teleport back to Fortree. Since we couldn't fly on the old route, that's not possible on the old route. And then we head in to Winona's gym as a Swampert. So now we're headed into the Winona fight as Swampert. And what's cool about this fight is that now we can use an X speed to outspeed the Swellow, which is just a free turn to set up X speed because the old route was forced to do it on a later poke. Then if we're not in Torrent, we're going to set up an X special. And on the old route, you would do pretty much the same thing without the X speed, but you're still slower, so it doesn't matter. And then the Swellow is a 65% damage range with Surf. Now it's guaranteed in either Torrent or Surf. Then on Pelipper, you have a few options, either times 1x attack or times 3x attack. Generally, you're going to do times 1, and the old route would do times 5x attack. So that's 4 less x attacks that you're using a lot of the time. And you're just going to 2-shot the Pelipper and the Altaria. So because you're generally going to be a lot higher health, because you're a lot tankier by being Swampert, and because you have to set up way less items, you have a safer and faster Winona. It was actually really easy to get double team trolled by the Swellow because of damage range into her healing, into more double teams, into running out of Surf PP. There were so many problems with this fight that aren't completely alleviated this route, but it's so much faster and so much safer that it just feels amazing doing this fight in comparison, honestly. So pretty much the last set of differences here is that when we arrive to Moss Deep, we are going straight to Steven's house instead of taking the Mart. And the reason that we don't have to take that Mart anymore is because we've bought so many of our healing items and repels early. But we also found out that you can do Kyogre Manip with a Great Ball for the same number of successful frames as you do with the Netball. So you don't actually have to take that shop anymore. And that was the cherry on top that really made this route incredibly worth doing and not slower at all, actually a bit faster. So the final difference is that in the Tate and Liza fight, we're 1 level higher, and we have an extra slave to tank hits from us. Now, what's important about this is that because Lunatone and Solrock target randomly, having an extra meat shield in the fight is just so important. And being level 38 for this fight, while it does make things a bit more complicated sometimes, it's actually a lot better. I think the main reason for that, if I had to say, is that Dive plus Surf is guaranteed on Solrock with both Lunatone and Solrock alive now. So overall, because you now have decisions with, okay, what slave am I going to send out first, depending on what Lunatone and Solrock did and what my current HP is, and is he charging Solar Beam, and between that and the fact that understanding exactly how much move you've just how much damage you've done with each move in each situation is now like super important. This fight is, in my opinion, significantly more complicated than it used to be, and it was already one of the more complex fights. But if you really know what you're doing, then your win rate is going to be a lot higher than it used to be at all HPs that you can enter the fight with. So I also really enjoy this fight even more now. So yeah. So the last thing that I should mention is that pretty much everything after this is going to be the same. There's a couple of defensive and offensive damage ranges that are slightly improved by being a slightly higher level for the last little Aqua section before you get Kyogre. Then you aren't going to use a rare candy on Kyogre because you actually use that candy to get the Mount Pyre candy to get Swampert, because that is more time save. In general, you're not going to lose any time to not having the Kyogre candy. If you hit the mild Kyogre, you're not losing any time to not having the candy. And on most runs, you're probably not going to lose much, if any, to that. So if you actually don't lose, if you hit all the Kyogre damage ranges, or you hit the mild, for example, then this route is like significantly faster and significantly safer. So that's about it. Hopefully this enlightened you guys as to the differences between these two routes and why it's such a powerful addition to the Pokemon Sapphire speedrunning experience. And, you know, let's get that record soon, boys. I'll see you there.